All right, welcome everybody to this joint meetup of Data for Good and CivicTechYYC. It's a real thrill for us to be in person as well as online. Yeah, in person for the first time in a couple of years. It's been a while, so we hope to kind of move towards in-person events as we can and do hybrid when we're able to as well from various locations. So really appreciate everybody coming out. We have about 20 folks, 20 plus folks here in person, and I hear about 14 people online. So I'll just give a brief intro first, and then we'll start with the kind of main event. So just in terms of land acknowledgement, we just want to, in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge living on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tsika, Kainai, Piikani First Nations, the Tsuut'ina, Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bearspaw, Wesley First Nations, and Métis Region 3, and all people who make their homes in Region 7 of Southern Alberta. So Data for Good, one of the organizations here this evening. So we are just a group of volunteers, passionate, socially minded, using our technical interest and skills to help make our communities a better place overall. And we do that by helping nonprofit and social organizations really leverage the power of data, getting the most out of the data resources that they have to really increase their impact in the community. So we are part of a national group. We have 9 chapters now, and all the way from Vancouver to Halifax. And a lot of these chapters also have meetups, right? So I'd encourage you to actually join the other ones. And there's some really great speakers and presentations. They'll have data projects and datathons and stuff as well, right? So once in a while, we'll have a national event. We hope to do that maybe sometime next year. But it is cool, interfacing and engaging with folks from across Canada. So we started in 2013. And over 2,600 members now. We work in kind of 3 different ways. We have our big datathon events. We have partner projects, which 5 to 10 volunteers working with a nonprofit partner. And the last couple months, we've launched these micro projects. So, and then these monthly meetups on the 4th Thursday of the month. So datathons, we've worked with some great organizations here in Calgary and organizations across the country as well. Our partner projects, the Alberta Law Foundation, we're kind of winding down that project now, and the Canadian Cultural Mosaic Foundation, that's kind of winding down right now. Our last meetup, you may have heard of an exciting project on human trafficking involving PolicyWise. And so we are looking for volunteers for that project, and that'll be spinning up. And there's 1 or 2 others that we have in the pipeline as well as partner projects. So we'll announce those at our meetups and send out notification as well. These micro projects, they're member driven. So it's you guys that have a great idea and you want to do something. You know, we've had pet adoption projects. We've had folks that created an amazing Twitter space for air quality in Calgary. So you can see the air quality in Calgary. Lots of really good things going, but we're looking to launch some new ones in the near future. So think about a great idea you have. Get some friends together and some data sets and go away and build some great visualizations. Our next meetup is on October 27th. we're having a speaker from the Responsible Artificial Intelligence Institute. So Alyssa, this is a new, relatively new organization, Canadian organization, really concerns about AI, the ethics of AI, how it can be used responsibly. So it'll be really cool. This one will be online because she's remote. But yeah, look out for that, and we'll post that soon on our site. Yeah, so the other group that's hosting tonight is CivicTechYYC. Really, we're technology for good. So a bit broader than data for good. So think of it as technology for good. So any type of app or technology where we can actually make Calgary a better place. And this is really a national movement that's been going on to use technology, data design for public good, trying to address challenges that citizens and governments may be recognizing in Calgary, as well as looking for new opportunities and to address challenges. So this broad tech for good movement, if you Google it, you'll find all kinds of organizations, amazing projects in a variety of different areas that have been evolving over the last 5 years or so. And we were launched in 2017. A big influence from the city of Calgary, the Civic Innovation Lab. We have a rep here tonight from the city of Calgary. So they were critical in helping us get things going, as well as the rainforest. So Rainforest Alberta, if you haven't heard about it, it's a fantastic networking forum. So Google or go to the website, rainforest.ab.ca, rainforestab.ca, and there's weekly on Wednesday at lunch, lunch without lunch is a chance to meet other people in the Calgary tech community. And so the idea wasn't, so Civic Tech's happening around the world as well, but we're really trying to break down those barriers. There's great stuff happening in Calgary, but we tend to really be isolated, right? And so whether like it's the red dot around the government organizations and the city and various other open government, smart city type of things are going on. The yellow there on the side, the startup community, the entrepreneurs, the institutions, the green is being the private sector, the tech sector in Calgary, which is growing kind of leaps and bounds. And then the blue, sort of the citizens, right? And so a civil society and amazing community groups that are out there. Good things happen, but tend to happen in silos. So what we're trying to do with Civic Tech is to connect some of these groups and bring people together. With some great ideas. So we were launched in 2017. 1,000+ members. We have our meetups on the second Tuesday, which is today. So officially, this is a CivicTechYYC meetup. And we work on the basis of projects, right? So we have hackathons every year. We haven't had it because of COVID. We hope to do it again. But same principle, right? So people come with a great idea. We get a group of people together, go away and do it, and great things result. So for example, we had Alice Lamb, who is not a technologist, but had a great idea about how do we get people to connect for volunteer opportunities. So she picks the idea, a group of 5 to 10 folks coded for a year or so over pizza and beer, and the result is Volley. So if you go to volleyapp.com, they've connected thousands of people to volunteer opportunities. That's just one example. We do blockchain for social good. We've done a project with the city of Calgary and the university around data from wearable technology for helping city planning. So that's been cool. And our most recent project was based on what was happening in Chicago called civic user testing. So we brought that into a hackathon, pitched it, got a group of people together. It's resulted in the launch of a new nonprofit organization called Inclusivity Calgary, bringing in diverse, often unrepresented people into the technology development process to get their feedback on user testing. So really cool idea that's being launched. Go to inclusitycalgary.ca and help us out. You can volunteer there as well to help us out. So we both Data for Good and Civic Tech, we are community partners here at Platform, along with probably 40 plus other organizations from across Calgary. So Platform is really being a great hub, a connector to bring people and organizations together. And for the startup community, but it goes well beyond just startups to groups like us and the city and government and public sector, the universities and others to try to connect as many folks as possible. And we're proud to launch that both Data for Good and Civic Tech, as well as a number of other organizations, have come together to launch what we're going to hear about tonight is the new Center for Social Impact Technology. So we're thrilled to have Drew Thomas with us this evening, who is the lead for the center. Some very exciting things that are coming up, but with the concept as well of being a connector, right? Being a place where some of these projects and ideas and people can really know about what's going on and then actually kind of help collaborate and kind of work together. So without further ado, Drew, I'll turn it over to you, and there you go.
Thanks so much, Jeff. And I don't think you should go too far, because I'm sure there's a few things as I'm just getting started that you'll probably have a few things to add. So please feel free to jump in as we go. As Jeff said, I'm Drew, joining for the Center for Social Impact Technology. I'm kind of going to be going over a bit of an overview of what the center has been up to so far and sharing a little bit about what we have in mind. But I'd love it if we could try and make this a little bit more interactive. If you have questions, comments, things like that, please feel free to toss them out as we get going. Don't feel like you can't jump in. As Jeff said, we are kind of a collaboration. Yeah, question back. The Zoom windows, absolutely. Perfect. So yeah, as Jeff mentioned, we are a collaboration for a number of groups in the city. We're based out of Platform. Actually, my desk is in the partners group over down the way. And we're sort of a knowledge and connections hub at the moment. We're developing from connections and interests within a number of groups, all the universities, nonprofits related to CCDO, and a couple of technology companies that are interested in this social impact tech space. We're hoping to try and be a connector for the work that has to happen to make Calgary a social impact technology hub. And what we sort of envision that as looking like is an opportunity for us to intentionally step into a new industry, into an industry that is growing, and that's something that we can be well known for internationally, something that we already have some examples in the city that are effective and sort of on that international stage. So our little tagline, as we call it, we're sort of envisioning this as a space where we can interact with the community that already exists, as well as support the development of a larger community, building those bridges for responsible, open, and inclusive technology. I do know a few people in the room already, and it's great to see you from different things, from Rainforest and other such meetups. But please, if you would like to connect at all, please come see me after this. This is by no means all that we're doing. This is more of a general overview. The center at the moment is myself, our fantastic advisory board of interested organizations, and a couple of student researchers working to develop this network and to sort of embody that knowledge mobilization piece. At the moment, a lot of what we're doing is very informational. We have a series of webinars and our upcoming summit that we are going to be talking about a little bit more later on, but it's really an opportunity for us to share and connect. If you have an idea and interest within social impact technology or something that you think might fit within our purview, it's a great opportunity for us to connect and share those ideas. So we had one of our webinars this morning talking about social impact technology and innovation. It was a great opportunity to share a little bit about what we're up to, but also a great chance to meet with different groups that are already doing that work. So if you do have any suggestions or would like to connect with that, that is one of the ways that we are currently connecting. The description and background that, and feel free to jump in, Jeff, that we have as the center is sort of a recognition the city is situated for a big expansion within the tech community. Platform in and of itself is a great example of that. What we are trying to do as the center is to provide a little bit more of socially impactful direction, connecting with technologists that are interested in social impact, and on the other side, connecting with social impact organizations that want to connect with technologists to solve large systemic issues within the city. We're kind of seeing it as an opportunity to bring together different groups. We have a stake within the tech community. We are based out of Platform, as I said, but we're also trying to connect to academics, to social organizations, to social impact groups, any groups that are working to try and solve systemic issues and bring them together for different opportunities for collaboration and connection. So a lot of groups in this space, I imagine, that are working in that sort of knowledge-based connection piece. So the center is not just about sharing what we're doing as far as social impact technology, we're also trying to build some of those connections. And I know that although we're just sort of starting out here in September, we are sort of jumping in with both feet, trying to build those connections and opportunities. And one of the biggest places of interest that we are working on right now is in our project-based work with work-integrated learning, students from different universities, different colleges that want to be engaged in different projects throughout the city to try and integrate not only as technologists, but people who are interested in solving social issues and having that connection to technology early in their career. I don't know, Jeff, if you wanted to share anything else along those lines, but that is the general.
Yeah, maybe just sort of give my kind of little perspective on how this thing really got started. So, you know, so Data for Good, we've been going for almost 10 years now, right? And then Civic Tech and all the others. And what we've really experienced and what we've seen is that we have the world of social innovation, right? And the world of nonprofit and social organizations who are doing amazing work on the ground to really help people. And then we have the world of technology innovation. And whether it's data and advanced analytics or visualizations, or whether it's our artificial intelligence or whatever, we have this amazing stuff going on, but the benefits of that are accruing, you know, primarily to private companies, like whether it's the Googles or the Facebooks or a lot of other companies. And that's great that companies are taking advantage of that. But the advances, you know, in technology are happening virtually in isolation of some of the advances that are happening that we're trying to advance in the world of social innovation. So the whole idea about the center is those two circles is to push those together, right? In that kind of Venn diagram, to really have those that are doing social innovation start to understand what's happening in the technology world and how they could potentially use that for on the ground social innovation and helping people, right? And there's many, many ways that can happen. So that education and that broadening, but also on the technology side. And we have amazing tech ecosystem going on here in Calgary. And folks are on the leading edge in many, many different areas. But to the degree to which they're thinking about, okay, how can some of this be used for social benefit, right? We know that in Calgary, people have a really strong social conscience, right? And the fact that you're all here tonight as volunteers, right? We want to help out, we want to do good. So with those technical skills, with that technical advancement, educating that about the social side as well, right? About how we can use AI, how could we use some advanced analytics for the homeless shelters or whatever. There's so much there. And that in the most simple terms, that's what it's all about. Social impact technology is pushing those two things together. Cross-fertilization, education, research, training, having this as a thing that can be a technology thing, a new part of the ecosystem, but also for our educational institutions, for the next generation, right? So that, engineers and software developers who are getting training in universities get some background in social innovation. And folks that are in social work or in other social disciplines get some background in what's happening in tech. So the idea of having internships, the ideas of having programs, service-oriented learning is all part of it as well to create that next generation. So yeah, it's really exciting. This is groundbreaking. Like it's really, there's stuff happening in parts, but we are really trying to bring it all together here in Calgary and be a hub for this and kind of grow it and connect worldwide as well.
Yeah, and you're sort of jumping into the next section, which is awesome because as we're starting here, we're looking at this as a space to develop in a number of different areas. We've talked about different parts of what we're doing, but we sort of see it as a space where we can talk about different areas, different pillars or frameworks that we can think about social impact technology. Our current ones, the ones that we're currently working with, are these 5 on the screen there. They're not permanent, they are changing, they move with the work that we do and with the different definitions of things that we're talking about. But these are sort of ways that we're thinking about engaging within social impact technology. Not everyone will see themselves as fitting within social impact tech as a category, but a lot of different groups can identify one or more of these areas where they're interested or engaged in work that sort of connects to this larger conversation. So we don't expect everyone to fit within that space of social impact technology. We think that there is a lot of connections to be made in different industries, different focuses, and different social impact areas. So one of the things that, and this is a terrible place for this to be. Let me see if I can move that somewhere useful. So one of the things that Jeff mentioned that we've talked about a little bit was nurturing and retaining that purpose-driven talent, talking about connections between technologists, students that want to focus on social impact work. Some of the work that Did for Good and other groups in Calgary are already doing, connecting students to opportunities to work in this space, but also trying to help these local institutions to develop social impact tech opportunities, whether that's work experiences, whether that's through Calgary Economic Development's work integrated learning programs, just ways for students within technology fields, but also within social impact and social work fields to be able to access this learning, to develop those skills and build on some of the competencies that we see as important to be able to integrate that technology into social impact. So not only talking about the technology portion, but also the ways that we can have students think critically about the systems of technology, the way that we use technology in a number of different contexts, and what ways it can benefit different organizations, and the ways that we need to avoid the negative impacts of potential technological use. Of course, as soon as I move it one way, it goes the other way. Beyond that, we're also talking about building digital civil society. This is a larger, longer-term goal. It's something that's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit more of a large goal that we're looking towards. We want to build in a number of different components into the center that currently do not exist, but aim to develop that connection between nonprofit innovators as well as technological companies and a social R&D culture within the city. So we're talking about building out this digital civil society around social impact technology, thinking about the ways that that can be part of the way we think about technological development, and whether that can be something that the city of Calgary can, or the city in general, can be proud to consider the center of our social impact tech ecosystem here. So we're trying to work on a number of different areas, trying to bring in a lot of collaborations with different groups, but this is the longer term goal, to develop a network of groups working on integrating this into the technological ecosystem here. Beyond that, and the most visible portion that we've been doing right now is the building's shared knowledge and dialogue portion. These are our webinars. This is our dialogues and conversations, meetups like this where we're coming out and we're talking to different groups, trying to connect and see where people are interested in connecting with us, what work is already happening, where we can support and engage with different communities. We do host webinars that are focused on being a way for us to share general information about what social impact tech can be. But we're also talking about in-person gatherings like this, opportunities for networking, and a few things that are sort of coming down the pipes around developing the networking opportunities for nonprofit organizations or social impact organizations and technologists interested in solving social problems. We see this as sort of the low-hanging fruit that supports the other work that we're doing, that gives us the opportunity to build those connections, to develop that network of interested individuals, and to tap into those networks like this that already exist as a way for us to sort of connect into different topics in different areas and work based on the interests that we receive. So social impact tech can be pretty broad. If you ask what technology doesn't have social impact of some kind, it's very hard to narrow that down. But we're trying to approach it with open eyes, so that there's a lot of different perspectives around this area, and to make it possible for us to work within the interests and direction of community as well. So we're starting out with the iterative process of having those webinars, seeing where the interest lies, and trying to build out from there. But these opportunities to chat are just a great place for us to start. If there are projects or things that you think are important for social impact technology, it's a great resource for us to connect and have those conversations. Beyond that, the ultimate goal, a large long-term goal that we're talking about, is transforming Calgary into a hub for tech-enabled social innovation. Pretty much everything that we talked about or shared is focused on combining those two streams, making it easy for us to think about Calgary's economic transition as a transition towards social impact technology within the city, not only building Calgary's tech sector, but trying to make it purpose-driven, focused on transformational tech innovation that is socially impactful, that tries to build a better future for everyone and is connected to it, and really based in those organizations that are working on social innovation. So one of the first things that we are jumping into here is an opportunity to connect with community that's a little bit more citywide. We're trying to have the opportunity to talk to the communities that we're working with, to develop these ideas, and to sort of share the spectrum of different areas of social impact tech. The first piece that we're doing is this Social Impact Tech Summit. It's November 3rd and 4th. It's both in person and online. The first day is Calgary focused. It's talking to different groups about the potential for social impact within the city, what groups are already doing this work, where those friction points exist for getting new students and interested Calgarians into that space, as well as the ways that we can develop this ethos of social impact tech within the city. November 3rd, it's at C-Space. We'll be having sessions sort of develop this sort of connection to community. It's not just a panel conversation. There are opportunities to connect and provide feedback. And it's sort of a space for us to talk about the futures of social impact tech in Calgary. We see it as an opportunity to share what's already been done with different groups that we've been working with so far. I mean, it's a pretty fantastic who's who of Calgary social impact tech at the moment. I think we have Charles Buchanan, a number of fantastic people speaking to how we pair tech innovation with social innovation, that transformation of concepts or transferable concepts. We have conversations around access and availability of data. How are we going to make sure that Calgary is not only a tech hub, but something that is open and accessible, something that is allowing us to all benefit from the data that we're producing and using, as well as a lot of others. Day one, of course, in person, focused on Calgary. Day two is a little bit more international in scope, working with some of those groups that we're connected to in our network across Canada and the United States. Groups like All Tech is Human. We've got Data and Folger joining to do a quick presentation for us, and a number of quick webinars to share some of the different entry points or interest areas for this conversation. I think that both days will be really interesting as an opportunity for us to connect and share the work that we're doing, but also just as a space for us to ideate a little bit about where we want to go what the specific interest points are. And because there's so many different perspectives about what social impact tech could be, it's an opportunity for us to air all of those different ideas and to share how we're going to work together towards those goals. I think that it's a pretty cool lineup. If you want to check it out, you can see it on the QR code there. I'll also share it in the chat there in a moment. But anything you wanted to add about the summit there, Jeff?
Yeah, you should be there. It's going to be awesome. I think both days they're a little bit different in the focus, of course, but yeah, this discussion, for the first time happening in Calgary, we want input from as many people as possible, and there'll be opportunities for that. And then the second day, it is kind of a who's who of some of the renowned folks that are doing really great work around across the country and into the US as well. So.
Yeah, it's I think the challenge that we've had is the amount of people that couldn't actually join on those 2 days, because we've already filled them up quite a bit. But it's great to see the interest and some of the connections there. We are going to have some really great content coming out of that. Some of the recordings and different pieces that are going to be building into our webinar content. We sort of see the summit as a launch for the center, an opportunity for us to show some of the things that we've been working on, but also to sort of jump into the areas of interest that we want to carry forward. So, we're talking about different topics at each of our webinars, building out some of that content and building in those opportunities for reflection and comment. So,
yeah, just to say that November 3rd is a full day here in Calgary at C-Space. The 4th is about half a day with like half-hour slots for these folks to give their presentation. So it's really high energy, really focused, and won't take up too much of your time. It'll be done around noon on Friday, and you can take off for the weekend.
Absolutely, and it's not it's pick and choose. If you want to just do the digital version, you can join them just on the Friday and hear some of those talks. We've tried to keep it as accessible and open for different interests as possible. You can join in for the first day and just do the in-person part, whatever you would like. It's a great opportunity to connect and share with some of the groups that you're working with in the city as well as the province. If you're interested at all in participating, sharing some of the work that you're doing as part of that program, we'd be happy to chat about that at the end of the day today as well. Although most of our panels are pretty well full, we do have the opportunity for some tabling and opportunities to share and support that work that's happening there as well. Some of the pieces that we are working on developing out, this tech stewardship program. If others have heard of this, this is a fantastic online program that you can take. Right now for practitioners, it is free. I believe that the current fall registration is over for the fall. This came out of the Mars Lab in Toronto. As the center, we're supporting some of these courses as a way to develop that network of digital citizens in a number of ways. Highly recommend this tech stewardship program. It looks at a lot of the same language as social impact tech. If you're looking at me and you're thinking, wow, I don't really know how this connects to me at all, this is a great way to build those connections and see where that piece comes in, because the tech stewardship conversation has a lot of overlap with social impact technology, thinking about the ways that we can be responsive to our technology development needs. And having gone through it, I think it's a great opportunity just to meet different groups that are working on very similar things across the country. Awesome opportunity if you can check it out. We do have a number of other educational opportunities on the website as we're developing out content. If there's things that you think that we should be talking about, again, this is an opportunity to build that out. So beyond that, Jeff, anything for?
Well, just to say about tech stewardship, so it does result in a micro-credential. So it's really cool that way. You can get a micro-credential as a tech steward. And Mark Abbott, who is kind of the leader of this, has put this together from the Engineering Change Lab and from Mars in Toronto. We'll be at our summit day one at our summit.
Yeah, and fantastic conversations, I think, from that, and an opportunity to check out the tech stewardship program. Should be really great. Before we finish up there, any questions about the Center for Social Impact Technology? Anything that's bubbling up while we were chatting there? Yeah.
I get a sense of the vision that's together. I guess you're actually by highlighting other things, the actual results.
Yeah.
I guess that was really my question. Highlight some of the nuts and bolts, but I think you have.
Well, yeah, and I think that it's, you know, the things that we talked about here are most of the things that we already have going on. Some of the plans for the future that, you know, develop as we chat with different groups and build out some of those connections. There's a really interesting collaboration happening out of MRU and AU Arts around arts and tech, the impacts of technology over the last few years on artistic practice that we're sort of supporting as a reference and educational piece to the work that they're doing, trying to articulate artistically some of the pieces that they think are really interesting about Calgary as a space to practice as an artist, as well as how they work online within sort of a distance environment. Beyond that, we have some really interesting connections and opportunities around developing out those work integrated learning programs through a number of programs that already exist. Beyond that, the project-based work could be, we could talk about that all night, I think, the different opportunities to connect and work with different groups for any technological problems where we're providing some support, and that work integrated learning component, any number of digital integrations for social impact organizations, as well as that sort of networking piece that we haven't really decided how that will work. There's some interest as far as social innovators trying to get into this tech space. How do they connect with the groups? But as we've just sort of been started for the last about month or so, it's sort of an aspirational goal for later on. Yeah.
Can I just get you to repeat the questions for the Zoom participants, please?
Absolutely. Sorry about that. So that was a question about the nuts and bolts, as well as the opportunities for additional programming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was questions about the projects that we're working with.
And just another example of the kind of project that we can kind of work on. So, for example, the city of Calgary is developing a digital equity strategy. So, great initiative, engaging community organizations and others from across the city. The tech sector has kind of been isolated from the development of that digital equity strategy. So we're hoping, for example, through the center, we can become a focal point, right? Number one, to educate that it's actually happening. But number two, bring in a variety of people to help that digital equity. So you can imagine, so something like digital literacy is so important in reaching out to underrepresented and diverse communities around digital literacy. Well, wouldn't that be a great way for Data for Good volunteers or civic tech volunteers like you, for us to be organizing workshops or in the library or whatever, to go and help teach and talk and help folks raise their digital literacy. So those kind of things wouldn't happen if we don't have a way of connecting the dots between the various organizations that might be out there. Yeah.
So why how we can help other businesses and all the parts, all the activities somehow have is to have a page or something like that where the BNIB group has something like this. They have a page like everyone works with them. There is a list of those people, and you can make it so that they can so that anyone who they need to do this, they could come to this website and see what is going on in the who they can comment, who is willing to be commented. That's yeah, make it accessible.
Great idea. It sounds like a great civic tech project. So let's get some folks signed up. So the comment was around we should be developing like resources and web page and others for people to be able to sign up and connect and to find out about it. And we think that's a great idea. We just need some folks to actually kind of make it happen.
Yeah, there's some really great examples, and things like ABC has a new tool that just came out that has that listing of different social innovators that are trying to build out a network. I believe it's called Monera. I have to look it up. Starts with an M. I know that. So there's a lot of great connections that exist in these databases that we could talk about. And
regarding Monero, it is only not for social companies, it's only for non-profit companies. It's the important point.
only for nonprofits. Yeah. So there's a lot of examples in different areas, but nothing that encompasses all that we're talking about. I think it would be great to maybe try and build up those connections and try and bring those networks and dashboards together. Because CCBO is working on one. There's a number of nonprofits that are building similar tools. It would just be really interesting to see. As far as projects too, if we have a way to put those.
Yeah. No, there's a question at the back there. Yeah.
Just curious, I know that Innovate Calgary has a social impact fund, and also opening social impact hub.
Yeah. So the presentation today, earlier, the webinar was in partnership with the Social Innovation at U of C. This is all part of their Social Innovation Launch Week that they're doing this week up until Friday. I believe you're on the Friday session for Data for Good, but there's a launch on the Thursday. We are connected. Their social impact work and then social innovation work is connected to what we're doing, but not necessarily funding what we're trying to do as far as projects.
So the question was, I think, a two-part question. One was about the Social Innovation Hub. So that's being launched at the University of Calgary. Innovate Calgary has the lead there. Some of you might know Jordan Armstrong, so she's kind of got the ball there, and so that's launching as we speak. It's being built. It's in the Alistair Ross Technology Center on the second floor. So repurposing that space. That whole area is becoming an innovation district.
Just for online, can you guys stop the screen share? I think it'd be good to have both of you full screen. And there is also one question in the chat if you wanted to look at that. I'm not sure if you wanted to read that aloud to everybody there. Just
and
like we have in person.
Sorry, the second part of the question was around the social
We have a fund as well.
the city of Calgary.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a social impact fund that is out there as well. Yeah. Question here.
Yeah. So I got a sense of like you guys are looking for people of different backgrounds, academics, students, technicians, and so on. I was just wondering if you can have like a better, more detailed picture of what kind of backgrounds are you looking for exactly, like in academics and students. Technicians, I guess that's kind of clear, right? People who are into like data probably. But as for like because I'm an academic and I'm just interested to see like what kind of background you are exactly looking for.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we're working with a number of different academics from all different disciplines. We're trying to look at this very holistically. We do have connections on our advisory board for computer science and people working in that area. But if there are interested groups from any number of areas, I mean, from the School of Public Policy, we've been connecting with a group that's working on the digital divide and Northern access. There are a number of different policy interventions and thinking about how that applies to the city of Calgary, thinking about digital equity in a number of ways, tech poverty, and working with groups that are sort of in different areas of academia and trying to build those connections. I don't think that we're looking for any specific interest within those.
Yeah, I think it's as broad as we can get. I mean, there really are no real limits there, right? And in terms of academic institutions, so at MRU, this was spun up with James Stotts from the Institute of Community Prosperity and a number of others, at Mount Royal. At U of C, we have the so-called Social Innovation Initiative. If you Google that, you'll find out that U of C has this broad initiative around social innovation across faculties, right? So the whole idea is to connect across disciplines, across faculties. We have a project that's working on a social innovation data collaboratory with the data science folks to have a place where social data, whether it's from social work or nursing or from public policy, can come into one place to be utilized. And at SAIT is involved as well through the School of Advanced Digital Technology. So we are trying to connect as many points as possible. Ross, you had a question online?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat. Did you guys want to read it out, or do you want me to read it out here?
Yeah, I can read it out. So it says funding is identified as a large missing component for social tech to take off. Is the center eventually going to provide financial support or funding? That's a fantastic question, and I'm glad that came up. One of the stretch goals that we have that is sort of on the horizon, but I would say is not something that we have explored fully, is that social impact tech funding model, looking at the ways that we can provide support for different groups that want to be in that social innovation space without really a profit motive being part of that eventual result. So there's been a couple of interesting conversations with a couple of different groups, but at the moment we haven't had any structure around what that looks like as far as
so we're definitely exploring new models for funding, because the comment is exactly correct, right? Like, it's one of the huge issues around this space. But what we are going to do, what we can do, is to help with the education and the raising of the profile of social impact tech, and the role of data, the role of technology in the social sector, but talking to the funders, right? Talking to foundations, talking to philanthropists, talking to government organizations. Historically, they don't fund technology, right? They don't fund data, or it's often considered to be administration. And the problem with that model is this perception that, you know, if a nonprofit has a high admin cost, they're not doing a good job, right? And so we have to do a re-education about the role of data, the role of technology, to actually make that organization better through the use of technology that should be funded by foundations and philanthropists and others, and break down those barriers. So that is something we're absolutely going to do. And things like the summit is a chance to get some funders and others to attend these events so that they can be educated about that aspect of it. Question at the back, yeah.
I was wondering if the idea of social businesses came up. I don't know if you know the concept of social businesses.
Social enterprise?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because some of these technologies are so profitable and they, you know, thrive in the private market, maybe developing the model of social business where you make a company that's self-sustaining, but at the same time, it's not measured, its success is not measured by their profit, but by the service they provide to the community. And it normally works with the hybrid model where you have some kind of a line of business that's for profit, and then with that you finance another line of business that's only for help.
Yeah, so the question is around, or comment really was around social businesses or social enterprise as it's known, and the potential to take some organizations that may have great technology, but actually have a social purpose as well, and be able to fund that and run that and make it sustainable. So it's a great point. It's an active area of work, and like ABC is an organization that's working on social enterprise. Innovate Calgary has some great programs around social innovation and social enterprise. The Trico Foundation, you might be aware of, does a lot of funding in the area of social enterprise. Bow Valley College has some great programming in that area as well. So it is really important to the center because it speaks to the concept of sustainability, right? We can have a great idea, right? But if you can't rely on government funding or philanthropy forever. Like it's going to run out. Plus, you burn up too much time always making those applications. So having some sort of revenue stream, having some sort of business model is actually critical to the success of social impact technology. So great point. Thanks.
Yeah. And just to add that our advisory board does have a couple of members that are great examples of successful social entrepreneur groups that are working within the city that are trying to pair that social impact technology help seeker, some of those groups that are already in that sort of space. I see there's a question in the back and in the middle. Yeah.
I feel like they're trying to this gentleman hit on it, David's hit on it. What are the metrics going to be? Jeff, you started to elaborate here that a lot of this will need to be dependent on some sort of cash flow. And if I may paraphrase this gentleman here, when do we begin to see the social benefit without needing to have that cash flow metric in place? Because I mean, the only reason why I'm here tonight is because it's almost like one of these things is not like the others. What's the title? Social innovation technology, social impact technology.
Yeah.
Tech, yeah, hit tech all day long. When are we going to start to hit the social impacts of these positive technological benefit items, issues that get created? I hear continually how well tech is doing. I hear continually how well the small projects that are social innovation based, and yet we still have a lot of poverty, we still have a lot of people who are struggling from day to day. To me, that's where you see social impact as having that positive thing. Not to say that it's not going there. Maybe the advisory panel is like somebody's there who's like, we need to make sure we're getting this group.
Yeah, so the question or the challenge, I guess, is around when will we see social impact really taking hold, right, and having the same prominence as technology and technology innovation. And it's a great question, and we're not there. And in fact, that would be our objective, right? Is to the social innovation, technology innovation. Those two bubbles are not equal, right? Like social innovation is here and technology innovation is here, right? So not only are we trying to push them together, right? We're trying to increase the bubble of social innovation, of social impact. So that it does become truly important that we can come to some novel funding models and sustainability models as well. But how many billions of dollars are we spending as citizens through our taxes for social programs? Billions and billions. Is that being spent effectively? No. Some of it is, some of it's not, right? And technology is not going to solve everything. Absolutely not. But it can start to, right? So what we're trying to do is do that education piece. So that some of that money, we recognize that if we get some technologists, get some companies, do some educational stuff, that we can start, to use AI in responsible ways to help people, right? We can use data analytics in responsible ways. So it is possible. We're a long, long way, but that's the vision of where we want to get to. Sorry, so look, comment.
So, the question I also want to just the continuation towards those two gentlemen about where they're at. In the scheme of things now, where are you? Because we're talking about trying to see how we can bring the social and the together. And
So we're on our first step of a marathon.
So
that's where we're at.
Yeah,
that's why we need your help.
Absolutely. So looking at that, what program do you have? What time frame are you looking at? What is the projection that you're looking at? Are you looking at a 6-year program? Are you looking at a 10-year program? Are you looking at a 10-year program? I mean, for you to start all this, there must be a vision. You have a vision, all right. There's no doubt about that. But how do you want to get on that vision and ensure that at the end of the day, you are coming out and people are being able to say, oh, yes, absolutely, that. So that's all right.
Yeah. So the question is about kind of the vision and where are we at, and is this a couple of years? Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? And how do we get there? How do we start to move it along? And so we hope we'll be around in 20 years, and that we'll have some amazing success stories. Or maybe we put ourselves out of business, and there's no need to have us in 20 years. I'm not sure that that's realistic. But look, this is not something you solve easily or quickly. It takes all of us to come into a conversation. We need to have what I call a roadmap, right? Which does have a longer term vision, which identifies the groups that need to be brought into this. But we have to start now. And we have to start with some quick wins. We have to start with, like the summit is an example. So for the first time in Calgary, we'll have 100 people together in one space having that conversation. That's important. Is it going to solve anything? No. But it might launch 2 or 3 things that will actually start to solve things. So the response would be, yes, it's long term, but it's in steps as we go forward, starting with some quick wins and actually having some benefits soon, as opposed to waiting and talking about it for 20 years to act on. Drew,
Yeah, and just to add from that, thanks Jeff for that description. Yeah, I would say if we're still here in 20 years working on this, then we haven't done something right. The goal needs to be building towards systems change. If it does take 20 years, I think that's the way that it is. But what we're talking about is very, very sort of short incremental pieces that we can build towards larger change over time. Webinars are great. It's great to have those conversations. We're not changing anything in that room, but the conversations that we're having are giving us more connections and opportunities for later on. Being a new organization with community connections throughout the city is important, but also building out those connections and going where the interest and the energy lies. If that's in taking on one of these particular pillars or areas of interest to start, I think that's a great place for us to go, to follow the interest as far as solving some of those issues, because the whole system change will take some time. Absolutely. I know there's the question in the chat, and I've seen a couple in the back there as well.
My question was a better question.
Okay. Did you want to?
Yeah, I guess my question is impact is a very broad term. Are many impacts less people or more equal than others in your mind, in your vision?
I love that question, because I've been asking myself that for this whole month around social impact and tech, very nebulous terms in general. You put them together, there's a number of different interpretations for what that is. What technology doesn't have some kind of social impact? When we're talking about the work that we're doing being so broad, I think that there are, social impacts that are more salient, more important for community good, but where we're able to leverage support and where we're able to work with groups that are interested in solving a particular social issue, we're not necessarily thinking about, focusing only on those big issues. We are talking about equity in a number of different lenses and working with a number of different groups on digital equity in a number of areas, but we're not going to pick and choose, I guess, is my thought at this point. Maybe Jeff, you have thoughts around that piece. But just the social impact piece is really taking a very broad lens and trying to find those leverage points in a number of different areas. So we can't just focus on the nonprofit sphere. We can't just focus about in the technologist area. We can't talk about just social innovation. We kind of have to bridge and build between them. I don't know if that answers your question. Jeff?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's a really tough one. I mean, anytime we talk about impact or evaluation in the sector is very, very challenging. But impact can be negative or impact can be positive, right? And the reality is that a lot of impact of technology today has been negative, right? You look at Cambridge Analytica, you look at some of the damage that's been done by AI models, that you look at facial recognition. I can go on, right, about the negative impact of technology. So all I would say broadly is we're looking for positive impact to make life better for people. That's really what we're all about. Do you have an online question?
If you have an online question, do you want to jump in quick or?
So when you talk about social impact, I'm just curious, what mechanisms do you have for measuring impact? Do you use surveys, or do you have a survey arm or a market research firm, volunteer type group? Like how do you measure? What is the impact? How do you measure it?
I'm going to pass that over to our measuring.
Well, yeah, no, that
representative.
it's similar and is a great question, right? So, we need to have some metrics for the center ourselves, right, in terms of what we're doing. And then in terms of what we're supporting and the projects that are out there. The area of evaluation and impact evaluation and measurement is challenging. And it often comes down to it's not just quantitative. A lot of it is qualitative as well. And we're not good in society today, right? I mean, talk about data for good. So I'm a data geek. Yeah, we love data, right? But there's two types of data, right? There's qualitative and quantitative. And we don't pay enough attention to stories, to storytelling, to various indigenous ways of storytelling and understanding what's happening. So I think through the center, we're trying to come up with some new thought processes and ways of actually measuring impact. Yeah.
Awesome. So it would make sense that if somebody started a new project to like have some kind of clear defined goal. The goal of this project is to do X, Y, Z. And whether it's qualitative or quantitative, then have an evaluation program, whether it's strictly data driven or somewhat,
absolutely.
Here's what we think.
Right.
Even if we don't have the data to back up, here's why we have the goal. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so the comment is around, at the beginning of a project, have some clear goals, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, to try to measure that project. And I think, that's kind of the right approach, but things change as well, right? And in the sector, organizations get funded, right? They make a funding application and you say you're going to do A, B, C, and D, right? And you get funding to do that. And oftentimes you put out goals and that sort of things as well. But oftentimes the world changes, right? And no longer is A, B, C, and D what you should be doing. It's D, E, and F. But the foundation of the philanthropists or others has funded you to do this. And we are really bad at changing those objectives to actually be more responsive to what's actually happening on the ground. So yes, you need to set out your perspectives, but they can't be locked in stone either, right? You have to understand, like take COVID as an example. Who would have thought like 2 years ago what impact COVID would have had on any organization operating in Calgary? Right? So.
And I think if I could jump in there as well, the sort of reporting of data and conversation around how we measure what we're doing and how well we're doing. The qualitative piece is always is conversational. A lot of the times when we're having these sorts of conversations or workshops around, what is social impact tech to your group or to your interest? Often what we're getting back from that conversation isn't necessarily an outcome for that group to take on a particular task or the number of heads or counting in that room. It's the conversation around what that means for that particular context. I think I have a couple people from this space who are at the workshop at Moving Mountains potentially for talking about social impact tech and thinking about environmental tech. What would it take for Calgary to be part of an environmental technology revolution? What does that look like? How do we have to structure our technology to be environmentally and climate sustainable? The conversations that came from that were far more valuable than the number of people in the space. It's a great opportunity to have multiple different perspectives, but really interesting to see how we can report that back to our funders, but also to our team and see where the interest lies in approaching that. The artistic collaboration that we have currently on the books is really just from a group that was interested in technology and Googled us. Those sorts of collaborations and connections that are hard to quantify in a number of ways. I think is sort of building out that planning would be hard to do, but maybe retrospectively, looking back at what did we achieve from this particular innovation or opportunity. Maybe that's a starting point and a final point as well. Question on the chat here. We've got what are some Calgary examples of technologically empowered nonprofits? Off the top, I mean, I could think of a few, but Jeff, do you want to share any that's for you?
Well, there's, a number of the sort of the traditional organizations are really moving forward. So the Calgary Homeless Foundation, for example, and we as Data for Good did a datathon with them. So they have the HMIS system, the Homelessness Management Information System, an amazing resource of data. They have a director of data analytics. They have a team of 3 or 4 data analysts. They're doing a really good job of helping to use data and analytics and to really move forward some of those big issues around homelessness. The Calgary Counseling Center has launched a number of really innovative programs that are out there. A really good example is Help Seeker, which is actually operating as a social enterprise because they do want to be sustainable. But they have an app which is called Help Seeker, which people use to find services from across Alberta and actually across Canada right now. But to identify a lot of these services, a lot of data comes in there, but they're using advanced artificial intelligence, machine learning, and to really analyze that, and have done some really remarkable stuff as well. And there are other examples as well. Yeah. Another example.
Yeah, just a comment, I guess.
Yeah.
When talking about social impact, I think we missed a UN framework of SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah. Maybe we can align the impact of our projects and softwares to how it is aligned with sustainable goals. Now, they have like 17 goals and it has its own target. There's multiple ways of aligning impact of technology.
Yeah, so the comment is around the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and can we use that as a framework to align impact relative to the 17 SDGs?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to jump on that as well. Yeah, lots of different ways to share it in different conversations, in different contexts. I think it depends on where you're using those connections, but yeah, that's a great connection for that. And just to share some of the nonprofits as well. Volunteer Connector went fully digital in the last year and sort of tripled their impact across the country because of their new system that gives them that opportunity. They're not a local volunteer resource center; they're now a national one, and that technology. That dashboard that they're using is allowing them to do that. As well, in Calgary, we have something called Calgary Dollars, which is a digital currency that's sort of unique in that it's one of the first digital currencies, and it's sort of a large one for Canada that gives us an option to look at the different ways that technology can support local and circular economies as well. Question?
To ask the flip side of the technologically empowered nonprofits. What's the engagement model if I've got a nonprofit who's not technologically empowered? Is there a consultation step? Am I asking Am I asking the right questions? Am I, employing the right initial steps in terms of my technological infrastructure to solve the problems that I have? Are there supports and opportunities from a social engagement to help bootstrap those non-technologically empowered?
Yeah, so I think it's a great point because that's kind of what has to happen, right? Like to actually get it pushed down into what is like 20,000 nonprofits in Calgary or something, right? So how do you actually help them? So I mean, part of that is CCBO, the Calgary Chamber of Voluntary Organizations. So the leader there, Karen, is on our advisory board. We hope to have opportunities for workshops and education and other types of programming that will go out to organizations for them to learn about some of that. They need more than that, of course. So there are organizations in town. Technology Helps is one of those, which provides technology services to nonprofits in a model that's lower cost, but also has funding associated with some of that as well. There is a brand new national initiative, the Canadian Centre for Nonprofit Resilience. It's come up through the CIO Council, but it's a broad initiative across Canada, and they've identified a number of sort of areas of engagement, and the whole point is to try to have technologists and others work with nonprofit organizations to have opportunities to learn and then to actually do something within their organization.
That's a quick follow-up. As a social innovator, with model support me or like engaging with one of these nonprofits from a social innovation standpoint without the technical solution you come to the table with that fit within?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think just to jump in as well, I think there's a lot of interest in that space of social innovators connecting with nonprofits and building that network. At the moment, CCBO, Calgary Economic Development, there's a number of groups working on these databases where there'd be an opportunity to post either an issue or a solution that you want to work on, as well as opportunities to work with students within that network. I don't know what that looks like yet, and I don't know how the center fits with that, but I would love to talk to you after this, and maybe we can try and connect you into that work as well.
Yeah, and we shouldn't forget organizations like Data for Good and CivicTech, right? And all of you, right, as volunteers. So that's partially what we're trying to do as well, is create opportunities, projects, initiatives, right, where organizations can come to the center, and potentially post a challenge or problem they're having. And then through the network of connections, including Data for Good and CivicTech, we can fan that out. And then you guys can volunteer to help out as well. Right? So it's a form of volunteer connection as well.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, is there like a resource that highlights all these stories? In just past 10 minutes, you mentioned so many stories about companies doing working in this space. We've been talking about those. Are these what wins look like? Are these what we want to have more of in Calgary? Is there a resource that highlights or showcases these so that it makes the stories accessible to everyone? Because social impact and technology is such a broad concept. Right? These are more concrete examples. It brings a better picture of what we're trying to achieve. Is there a resource right now?
Yeah. So the question is there a resource for people to go to learn about some of these stories and successes? That's a great lead in for you.
Yeah, it is. It's a great opportunity to share some of the things that we're doing. The webinar piece is part of what we're trying to do with that, turning those webinars into podcasts, turning them into storytelling opportunities for nonprofits, tech companies, and give us an opportunity to share those stories with a couple of the collaborating organizations that are going to sort of share and leverage our content on their own platforms. We're exploring some sort of crossovers and opportunities to have those stories be told in larger venues, but also building out some of that blog content. We have a number of these stories that are produced and ready to go. One of the things that we're running into is the opportunities to share and build out some of that content beyond the general outline of the story that we're working on right now. Because this is our first month, I will cop out and say that is our current timeline is to build out that content and blog content on the website. At the moment, there are a couple of short descriptions of examples or areas of interest, but there are, I would say, 10 times as many at the moment currently in draft format that are going to be published and shared through that content and also through that webinar piece. I see there's another question on the chat around stories as well. Absolutely, I think just to share that, I agree completely. I think that the storytelling gives us a little bit more of a clear connection to social impact tech in a way that very nebulous term doesn't always give us. And it's this opportunity to share some of those stories that I think is really helpful for me, at least, to see where those stories resonate a little bit with different groups. We have had some really fantastic groups reach out to us, but we are, at the moment, building from the network that we have. If you want to connect, if you want to share your story, if you want that opportunity to share that story with a larger audience, that's part of the role that we hope to play as well. So great opportunity to share.
Yeah, so bottom line, stay in touch, visit the website, get in touch with Drew, come to the summit, November 3rd and 4th, and participate. There'll be lots of opportunities for everybody to participate. Keep in touch with Data for Good and Civic Tech, as we're all part of this together. So I think with that, we'll kind of wrap it up for this evening. Thanks so much for coming out, both in person here. It's been great to be back in person, and folks on online as well. And yeah,